Hey, what's up guys? This is Keith and you're watching Barbour's Auto Help. Today I'm going to be replacing the transmission filter on an '06 Chevrolet Silverado 4.8 liter. Now this is on a Chevrolet Silverado, but this procedure is similar to a myriad of vehicles out there. There's a ton of vehicles that you could use this same procedure for and successfully do it. You will need a repair manual though for specifications as far as torque specifications and fluid specifications, things like that. But all in all, it's pretty generic procedure and should work for a lot of people out there. So I really hope this helps somebody, and let's go ahead and get into it. All right, there is some basic equipment that you're going to need to do this job. I would recommend a speed handle, ratchet with a socket. You'll need a funnel with a skinny tip on it so that you can stick it down on the dipstick too when you're done and fill the fluid. Get you a big catch pan, kind of like this. I got this one from Harbor Freight for around $8. Very inexpensive. You'll need plenty of fluid, probably 5 to 6 quarts roughly. It depends on the capacity of your vehicle. A couple cans of brake clean, and of course your transmission filter kit, which has the filter, the seal, and also the gasket that goes around the pan there. So we got to drop the pan to do this. So let's go ahead and get up underneath there, and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, first things first, you got to jack up the vehicle, and you need to do that safely. As you can see, I have mine supported to the hilt. I got 3 jack stands up underneath in the appropriate spots. I've also got the rear tires chalked and the parking brake applied. Consult your owner's manual and repair manual for the proper lift points and the proper procedure for lifting your vehicle. So we're directly up underneath this thing and we're looking straight up at it. And I think you got about 12 bolts on this one, and they go all the way around here. And on this particular vehicle here, it's got a shift cable that's in the way, so I'm going to have to loosen up that bracket right there and get the shift cable out of the way so that I can loosen these bolts up. But what I do is on each corner, I leave one bolt in, but I loosen it up about 3 turns. One right there, one right there, same thing in the back, same thing back here. And then I take all the other bolts out and just go ahead and get them out all the way. And then maybe on the front here, I might take that one and loosen it up a little bit more than the others. Loosen that one up a little bit more, loosen that one up a little bit more, and then just leave that one alone. And I just take a pry bar or something and I pull down on the pan and allow this corner to flop down, and that'll cause the fluid to come out kind of neatly, if you will. Not really too neatly, but a lot better than just taking a whole freaking thing down at one time. You can aim it and pour it a lot better, and I let it drain for a good long bit. Then I very carefully take the other bolts out. So let's go ahead and do that. Be sure you got safety glasses on before you get into this. I'm just going to loosen this one up just a little bit, maybe about 2 or 3 turns. Same thing on this one here, and on the rear corners too. And the rest of them we're just going to take out all the way. You don't want to use power tools on this. If anything, use the speed handle to take these out. You don't want to cross thread or damage the threads in the transmission. Got our speed handle. Makes quick work of it. Grab each one of these bolts here and set them off to the side in a safe location so you don't lose them. And go ahead and put your catch pan up underneath here because it's going to start leaking a little bit. And it's fair to mention, you probably want to be wearing rubber gloves while you're doing this, some latex gloves, actually not latex, nitrile gloves. Keep this fluid off of your skin. I didn't go out and buy me any. I should have, but just as long as you know, this fluid is not the best thing for you, and it can, prolonged contact can cause bad things. Check out your MSDS sheet on the particular fluid that you're using. Me, I've already got a third arm growing out of the side of my head, so I'm a lost cause, really. I try to be good. I'm going to loosen this one up just a little bit more. This is where I'm actually going to drain it from for the most part. And I want to loosen up our other 4 up a good little bit too. Or our other 3 up a little bit. See, the more you loosen it, the more it's going to start coming out. Got a good little drizzle there. So you just let it sit there until it stops. And then we'll take those bolts out the rest of the way. But the longer you let it sit, the better, the less messy it will be. Okay, we're going to take this one out all the way over here. And then we're going to loosen the other 2 up just a little bit more on the other side. We're going to let it kind of hang a little bit. This one loosened up just a little bit more. Alright. And you can try to pull down on this side a little bit here. See if it'll move any. I'm going to take this one out all the way. So we got that one and that one. That one is actually all the way out. I'm going to take this one out all the way too. Alright. Pull it a little bit there. I think we got the majority of it. So it's not splishing and splashing. We're going to go and take these other ones out here and kind of support the pan, because these are the last 2 bolts here. Support the pan with your hand so it just doesn't drop and you get transmission fluid all over you. By the way, this isn't the cleanest job you could do. You're going to get a little bit dirty. That's alright. That's fun, right? Yeah, right. Alright. Take this one out the rest of the way here. Alright, I'm going to scoot you back a little bit. I actually had another bolt up here I didn't know about. Whoops. That's alright. So this thing ought to drop down. We ought to see some fluid come out. We'll drop the front side of it down. Just do it slowly, because it's going to want to pour out on you. Here it comes. There you go. Kind of gotta, might have to fish it out just a little bit. Just let it sit down like this. There we go. Yeah, all over my hand. Usually at the shop, I'm doing this on a lift, not laying on my back. So anyway, this is probably how you're going to be doing it. So I guess I should do it the way you're going to do it. Alright, we're going to try to slide this thing forward and out just a little bit. I'm going to attempt to. Alright, whoop, we missed one. Oh well. That's what they make floor cleaner for, right? I'm going to leave my drain pan up underneath the transmission. Once your pan is off, you'll also need to drop your filter. And typically, on a lot of vehicles, you just pull straight down on it and it comes right out. Just like here's our transmission pan here. Go ahead and get over the rest of that fluid out. And while you got it here, let's go ahead and take our gasket off. And on this one, it should just peel up. Sometimes you'll get one that's held on by RTV, and you might have to take a razor blade to it initially to get it off. And this one's going to be good for us and actually peel off. And you might have to take a razor blade to it. And you want to just use this to scrape it off. You don't want to etch the surface of your pan or anything, get nicks and mar it or anything like that. You just want to get the old gasket material off. Also, you want to clean this up real good, get any foreign material off of it, any dirt, anything that will prevent a good metal to gasket mating. Get all that stuff out off of it there. And while you're here and you got your pan out, it's a good idea to inspect your magnet. This here is in your transmission to catch any metal particles that might come out of your transmission. Now this stuff right here, all this goop and stuff, that's actually normal. What you want to look for is like big chunks of metal. If you see big chunks of metal in there, you may have a problem internally in the transmission, and you may want to take it to a transmission shop, have them check that out for you. But yeah, get this thing good and clean too before you put it back in. Don't forget it. A lot of times you can forget this thing and put that transmission pan back up in there, and you won't have a magnet to catch any of those particles, and that's not good. You need to catch those so that they possibly don't get re-ingested into the transmission. Oh, you got that paper filter there too, I know that, but you just want to keep all that stuff in one place and not let it migrate around the transmission there. So we're going to clean that up real good before we put it back in. We're also going to spray the pan on the inside and the outside with some brake clean, and we're going to get it surgically clean before we put it back in. And it's especially not good to not wear gloves and get brake clean all over your hands. You know, I know I preach about that stuff all the time, and you see me doing it, but I guess just do as I say, don't do as I do. Right. Put it down again real good. Our mating surface nice and clean all the way around. Just double check yourself. I got a little dingleberry right there. That off. Magnet real clean. Place the magnet back in the pan where it went before. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and prep our filter and our pan for installation. Your filter comes with a new gasket or new seal. Be sure you put that on there. It goes right over the head like this. Be sure you got that on before you put it back in. And oh, by the way, when you take the old one out, be sure that that seal comes out with the filter. If it doesn't come out, you're going to have to pull it out. Be sure not to mar the surface where the seal goes into the transmission. Now for the fluid pan, we're going to go ahead and put our gasket down like this, and we're going to fish it back up onto the transmission like we had to fish it out before. We're going to fish it back up in there, and just be sure that your bolt holes are still clear when you go to put those bolts back up in, because this pan or this gasket can move around a little bit, so you want to make sure that the bolt holes line up before you put your bolts in. You don't really have to put any RTV on this or anything to make it tacky to hold it in place. You should be able to get it up and cinch it up to the transmission without all that. Now, before we go ahead and put this thing back together, just like we had to clean up the mating surface on our pan, we've also got to clean up the mating surface on the transmission. And what I like to do is I like to use a razor blade without scratching or marring it, and just kind of scrape any foreign material that might be on the mating surface there and get it real good and clean. If you don't have this good and clean, there is a chance it may leak. So take your time, get it good and clean, get a nice clean mating surface. And oh, by the way, the more that you let this thing sit here, the longer you let this thing sit here and drip, the less of a headache it's going to be on you when you go back up underneath it to clean it up. It's never fun to get some Chinese water torture while you're trying to change the filter on your transmission there. So just be patient, let it drain real good, and then try this, okay? Don't get impatient like I'm doing. Alright, we have our mating surfaces perfectly cleaned. All the foreign material, dirt, debris, gasket material has been scraped off of the transmission surface where the gasket's going to mate up with it. Now we're going to go ahead and put our filter in. Put it in there. Just press it into place. In that hole there, it's going to be a little bit of a snug fit. There you go. Alright, we're in, ready to rock and roll. Something you want to do before you actually go in with the pan and the gasket is try to get the mating surface as dry as possible. Maybe take you a lint-free towel and spray it down with some brake clean and just wipe the entire surface and make sure you're good and dry. The drier the metal, the better, and the better that the gasket's going to adhere, or actually going to seal. I want this whole area down here, and you don't want any fluid on this surface anywhere. You want it really dry. So really patience is key when it comes to doing this. I actually let it sit here for about 45 minutes between the last time you saw me and now, and a lot of that drippage really slowed down. It's not getting all over the place, and it's a lot more pleasant being up underneath here. So patience is key on this. Go ahead and take your pan and your gasket and fish it up in there, or snake it up in there, however you want to describe that. Do it without pinching the gasket or damaging anything. Alright, we got our pan back in there. Now we got to get our gasket and everything in place. And get a couple bolts ran in. Pan in place there, and make sure your bolt holes align and that your gasket's in place, and that the gasket's not actually laying inside the pan. And go ahead and run you up a couple bolts. Start out by hand at first. Make sure you got them threaded real good. I recommend doing all the bolts by hand at first. Get the first few threads in anyway, and then you can put your speed handle on it and tighten them down. It's really easy to cross thread these holes, and that's big trouble when it comes to transmission work. You don't want to cross thread those holes, so do them one at a time by hand. Alright, I got them all started. I can put my speed handle on it, go ahead and cinch them down a little bit. We're not going to tighten them, we're just going to run them down until we make contact. You try to use like a crisscross pattern when you're doing this. You don't want to. You want to bring it all down evenly if you can. It's pretty important. Just gonna kind of stagger it when you're tightening them up, or cinching them down as we're doing right now. Once you got them all run down, you then want to go ahead and tighten each bolt up to manufacturer specification. And you want to reference your repair manual for that information. And the same thing on this. You want to stagger it when you tighten them up. Start here, cross over, back over here, go over there. You know, kind of in a star pattern. You know, just sure that you're moving around and you're cinching it down evenly and tightening it down evenly, and not just getting that one real tight and then tightening that one up and then moving around this way and pushing the gasket out. You want to tighten it down evenly and uniformly, and you got to stagger it to do that. So and you'll see me go back over some and get a little redundant with it, but that's alright. Now, at the very end when I'm checking, making sure they're all tightened down uniformly, I will go around in a circular pattern, and that way I don't miss any bolts. I'll start right here and I make sure that I end on this bolt here. So just go ahead and make sure that they're all tightened up to spec. And no, I'm not using a torque wrench on this. After you do so many of these, you kind of get a feel for it. You know, after the first 100 or so, you get a feel for it, and you kind of know how tight you want it and how tight is good. But if you're not that familiar with it, then you want to use a torque wrench. And I'll come back on that one. There we go. Hit that one with a ratchet. Alright, now once you're done down here, go ahead and wipe everything down real good. Everything nice and dry. And even take you some brake clean and spray it down real good along the edges of the pan and on the surface of the pan. Try to get as much oil as possible off your exhaust if you got oil on your exhaust. And overall, just make sure it's good and clean. That way when you go back up underneath there later on to make sure it's not leaking, you'll know that it was clean to begin with. And if you see any transmission fluid, then you probably have a leak and you need to repair it. So we're going to check that. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and add some fluid. You got to take your dipstick out to do this. Set it off to the side there, and this is where we're going to need that skinny funnel that fits into the dipstick there. Now when you fill in your transmission fluid, make sure that you're using the correct fluid. If you look on the back side of the bottle, it should say what kind of fluid it's compatible with. Read your bottle, make sure it's compatible with your vehicle's specification there. And if you're not sure what your vehicle takes, consult, of course, your repair manual and your owner's manual. Also, let me flip this around here. It'll say on the dipstick what it takes, and this right here says it takes Dexron 6. So we're going to use Dexron 6 in this transmission. You want to use what the manufacturer specifies for your transmission, or you'll be facing some consequences. So put the right fluid in your transmission. And we got some Dexron 6 here. We're going to go in with it. And you want to slowly pour it in there. It's a small dipstick, or dipstick tube that you're pouring this fluid through, so it takes a while for it to actually go down into it. Don't get in too much of a hurry. And I like to start out with about 3 quarts roughly, and then I'll go down and I'll make sure nothing's leaking and come back up, add a little bit more, and then I'll take it down off the jack stands, start the vehicle, let it run for a little bit, go back and forth from reverse to drive, and put it back in park, and then check the fluid and add accordingly. Yeah, a lot of patience. Alright, I'm not sure if 3 quarts is actually enough to actually cause a leak if it were to leak on this, but you get the general idea. Add a little bit, check it, add a little bit, check it, and look around the edges here. You want to look for red fluid coming around coming out around the bolts there, or on the sides of the pan there. It looks like we're looking pretty good. Let's check the front. We're looking good over there too. Looking good all the way around, really. And that's just from where I sprayed it off. I didn't spray it off as good as I told you to, but anyway, you get the picture. Okay, we're going to go ahead and crank it up. And we're going to put it in reverse and drive. Reverse and drive. Back to park. And then we're going to go out there and check the fluid level. Alright, we're barely on the bottom of the dipstick there. So I'm going to go ahead and add another quart to it. Now, you know, this isn't really the final check that I'm doing right here. You really When it's all said and done, you need to go out and drive it and get the transmission temperature up and then check it. But in order to get out and drive it, you got to make sure you got plenty of fluid in it to begin with. So that's what we're doing right now. So I'm gonna let that settle down, then I'm gonna go back in there and do the same thing. Put it in reverse, put it in drive, back to reverse, back to drive, back to park, and then check it again. Oh yeah, and by the way guys, you need to have the vehicle on a perfectly level surface when you're checking your transmission fluid, or you may get a false reading. Alright, so I did that. I'm gonna check it again. And let's see where we're at. And we're down there in the cold range, which is really where we want it because it's cold right now. So what I would advise you to do is you can always add to it later on, but it's really hard to take it away unless you got a long sucker tube that you stick down that dipstick. So be patient on this. Don't overfill it. You don't want to overfill it. That can cause problems too. So being as we're down there in the cold range, which is right there, and that's the hot range, I'm going to go ahead and test drive it now, get it good and hot, and then bring it back and check it again. Alright, we got it warm. Let's go ahead and check the fluid level again. Let's see where we're at. And it's come up a little bit. So it's halfway between the hot and the cold range, which is decent. So I'm going to say we're pretty good. We're good to go. Ready to stick a fork in it and call it done. I'm going to go up underneath again, and you should probably do the same, and make sure that there's no leaks anywhere, and make sure everything's good to go and toaster up underneath. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. Feel free to ask any questions you might have down in the comments below there. Also, check out the description of the video for more important information about this project and more helpful information. As always, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff.